We know that Mercury in the chart represents the human need to reach out and communicate. It stands for the kind of intellect we have, the kind of messages we send. It's the embodiment of our speech patterns and our vocabulary. Mercury in one of the fire signs will have an intellect that's candid, forthright, and colorful. Mercury in fire isn't okay with humdrum daily concerns and pragmatic thoughts. They want it big and bright. When Mercury is in Aries, a sign ruled by the god of war, we get an arguer. In its higher form, we find someone naturally good at debate, a worthy adversary in that arena. It's also a banner carrier, an activist for a cause. It gets a hold of an idea and fights tooth and nail for it, especially if that idea rescues other people or improves their lives. Thoughts are fast, intuitive, and bold. Mentally, this Mercury is a leader and a trailblazer. It asks where the battle is taking place because the fight is exhilarating. There are two examples of Mercury in Aries that come to mind. The first is Saint Joan of Arc. She was relentlessly bold. She became a warrior on the front line in the 100 Years' War when women didn't lead anything. And it was because she had a vision, a cause to fight for, and a banner to carry that was consuming to her, the fate of France. You see, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac and therefore the simplest. They don't go for nuance and subtlety. They plow into things with visionary leadership because vision gives them meaning and purpose. As St. Joan said, "I am not afraid. This I was born to do." She had unshakable faith in the cause and in herself and in being right. She was said to be quick and to the point and fell into the category of evangelical, which is a curse of fire. And why not be that way when the archangels are sending you personal messages? Fire has no problem being in contact with the Creator. As St. Joan said, to live without belief is a fate more terrible than dying. We know this Mercury in Aries literally went out in a blaze. It was reported that when they lit the wood pile she was tied to, she said, "Hold the cross high so I may see it through the flames." And all this before her 18th birthday. Van Gogh was another Mercury in Aries. His war, of course, was against himself, against his mental illness at a time when remedies for that were sparse and ineffective. I find him to be an excellent example of this placement because so many of his paintings are on fire. Something within him burned, that's clear. He also embodied the fresh and new creativity, the illumination associated with fire by using a style no one had ever seen before. But he also had one of the downsides of this placement. He was combative with people, dirty, badly dressed, and by all accounts disagreeable. When it isn't expressed positively, you get a fight picker because interaction and conversation become battlegrounds. He and St. Joan also showed one of the other traits we see in this placement, being premature. Van Gogh sold only one painting while he was alive, but just over a century later, Red Vineyard sold at auction for $84 million. St. Joan, of course, was dead by adulthood, and she wasn't canonized until 500 years later, These are quintessential examples of people who are ahead of their time. In fact, there's a bit more to say about this placement run amok. It's the person who picks a fight with everyone because they want the stimulation of the clash, and they don't care if the other person isn't enlivened by the battle or finds it rude, because Mercury here is focused on the self, on the competition and the glory of the win. In fact, it's hard for Mercury in fire to keep the ego out of it and be objective. But at the same time, this kind of personal involvement is actually what causes this placement to be an agent for change. When it assesses someone or something as being in need, it is the most likely Mercury placement to take swift action. There's a decisive mind here, and it gets off on ideas like chivalry or being good or being a gentleman. It is, however, easily bored and gets frustrated and irritated quickly. Another quirk is condescension. I know what's good for you better than you know yourself. I'll decide you need help, and then I'll do the rescuing and be the hero. This isn't usually a very successful strategy because nobody asked for the help being pushed upon them. When Mercury is in Aries, you find someone who speaks fast and uses combative, controversial, or provocative language. They can be really nice people, but the next thing they know, they've got their sword and shield out, and they don't quite know how they got there. But that's the cost of spontaneity. One of my friends has Mercury here. She's quite the intellect to begin with, and she can be intellectually intimidating. She's a person of decency and integrity, but you'd better not mind being questioned about your statements. You'd better have evidence for the things you say. You'd better be willing to name your sources and back up your claims. Unless you're knowledgeable, you don't want to get into a battle of wits with her, because her storehouse of knowledge is a powerful weapon. And even when she's wrong, she speaks with a forceful, Aryan confidence that could fool almost anyone. I've seen people fold under the pressure. She's also the devil's advocate, jumping to the other side of a conflict to keep it going. Likewise, she sticks up for people who are weak themselves or have no voice of their own. A few days ago, I asked her about Mercury in Aries, and she said, I don't just want to vanquish my opponent. I want to dismantle their ideas and crush them. You see, the intellect is where she wages war. Thank you for watching Secrets from an Astrologer's Desk, Mercury in Fire, Aries. I'm Joy. More videos on Mercury through the Zodiac to come.